lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slain, an It Slays podcast production where we review the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And it's Jill.
And we're back for another one without Colton. Colton's still at work. I'm still filling in. I'm like the substitute teacher of Now Slain, where I come in, I kind of let the kids run wild, and it's questionable whether or not I'm good at my job. So,
but everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy, so that's the important thing. And we are talking about tarot tonight, or as I like to call it, tarot. Yeah, inside joke there. That's almost like a spoiler joke.
Yeah, you can't bring that up yet.
So before we get into it, Jill, were you looking forward to tarot? Or had you ever heard of tarot? And also, I want to know, are you one of these, as Letterboxd is calling them, Gen Z astrology babies?
Okay, that's a loaded question. But yeah, once you told me about tarot, I was very excited to watch it because it sounded like it could be fun. It sounded like something I would be interested in. Didn't really have much background on it. I just thought anything with tarot in a horror movie, I feel like it's not really done often. I can't think of anything else that's really done it.
Yeah, no, I think this is kind of unique.
So it is unique. So yeah, and also, I don't want to lump myself into, that category. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm not like a crazy astrology person. But I do dabble in tarot cards. I've got a couple of decks. Every now and then I'll pull it out and I'll pull out the deck. I'll pull out the tarot card deck.
I was like, geez, this review of this PG-13 horror movie is getting rated X.
For sure. But yeah, every now and then I'll pull it out and I'll play around with it. Jesus Christ.
It's just not getting any better. Yeah,
it's just not getting any better.
I love it for you.
But yeah, so, the movie kind of talks about like how there's different ways that you can read cards, and I'll talk about all of that later, but I kind of just do my own thing with it. I have a couple of decks.
Are any of them in black boxes?
Actually.
Burned wood?
No, I got this box from Michael's around Halloween time. It says like psychic on it.
Oh, okay,
It's got like a palm.
I think I know the exact box you're talking about.
Yeah,
so
it looks like a book. So yeah, I have the deck that I actually use. I keep it in there. And then I have a couple other ones. Mike actually gave me one of the decks I have because I gave him a Kawaii Tarot book that tells you like, what each card stands for or whatever. But yeah, I'm into it. I do think that astrology memes are funny, like Aquarius things, because I'm an Aquarius. Like the main character in this movie, the protagonist, is also an Aquarius, I believe. So yeah, I thought that was cool, really connected with that. But I'm not like crazy about it. I don't like, really, really believe in it, but I think it's fun and I think it's a cool tool or mechanism to use to kind of like self-reflect on what you're feeling and make choices about your future. Not that it can actually tell your future, and tarot, for the most part, from like what I've seen, is not actually about like predicting your future. And also, one thing that kind of bugged me about the movie is that they kept like intertwining the horoscope stuff with the tarot reading, which is like they're not really exclusive like that very often. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I was very drawn to this. How about yourself? Were you excited?
Somewhat, I guess. I did, I remember seeing the trailer when me and Colton kind of did our upcoming year in review, you know, I was like, oh, it kind of looks like it could be fun. It's like, you know, this like preteen, teen, aimed at preteen, teen horror. Obviously, you know, and we'll talk about it later on, but like, you know, this was named something different when there was like the rumblings about it.
Horoscope.
Yeah, horoscope. And, you know, I knew it was based off a book from the 90s that was like one of these kind of Christopher Pike-esque books.
Hell yeah.
And I've said many times that's my jam, so I was like, oh yeah, like, I'm ready for a good time.
Me too.
And in terms, I mean, no, yeah, obviously, I'm not Generation Z. I'm not an astrology baby. I know I'm a Gemini. That's as far as I know anything.
Oh, serial killers. That is the serial killer horoscope.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because most, like, all the big serial killers are Gemini.
Oh, well, you know, shout out to all my Gemini serial killer babies. Yeah, I'll make my own kind of letterbox thing for that. But like I said, I don't know anything about tarot other than like Mike talking about it. I got my tarot read one time at a wedding. It was pretty fun and kind of creepy because a lot of the stuff kind of came true, I guess, or Exilia claimed that it kind of came true. So,
right.
You know, whether it's real or not, I don't know if I'm the one that should be talking about that, because this is definitely an area I wouldn't necessarily believe in. So,
yeah, it's just kind of like, it doesn't have to be serious. It can just be like a fun thing to do. I also think it's a very millennial thing. Like, back in like Y2K, I feel like we were all crazy about our horoscopes, like in all the teen magazines. Like that was a big thing, is opening it up and looking for your monthly horoscope or whatever.
So are the readings in the cards positive for this film? Let's find out after we get into the trailer.
There's a lot of ways to see the future, but tarot is the most powerful. So how does it work?
12 cards in a circle with a 13th in the center.
The character is a symbol of what's to come.
The High Priestess is a warning to slow down.
We didn't just read the cards. We brought them to life.
Tarot, rated PG-13, in theaters May 3rd.
Tarot, which was released Friday, May 3rd, is directed by Spencer Cohen and Anna Hallberg, and also written by Spencer Cohen and Anna Hallberg, based on the novel Horoscope by Nicholas Adams, and the synopsis is as follows. When a group of friends recklessly violates the sacred rule of tarot readings, never use someone else's deck, they unknowingly unleash an unspeakable evil trapped within the cursed cards. One by one, they come face to face with fate and end up in a race against death to escape the future foretold in their readings. So here on Now Slaying, we like to start off with things spoiler-free. So Jill, we're going to start with you. What are some of your spoiler-free thoughts on tarot?
I mean, first of all, just because you reminded me, I've never heard of the rule to not use someone else's deck. So I don't know if that's like a real big thing in tarot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm curious, anybody listening, you know, if you are even big just using cursed decks of tarot cards, what are the rules on cursed decks from witches that killed themselves?
Yeah. Also, I think it's a really good time for this movie to come out. Like, yeah, it came out on May 3rd, but which is really close to like the 1st of May, which is a very witchy holiday. So I think that's cool. But yeah, to me, this movie would have popped the fuck off in the early 2000s. I think when movies with concepts like this were more prevalent, like Seven, Final Destination, even Saw, actually, like where deaths or murders are predicted by kind of common theme, like, you know, the 7 deadly sins, or like a repentance for something that they did wrong, like in Saw. So yeah, I think this would have been more confidently made back then. You know, it was like the right era for this to come out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, everything you're talking about in terms of like the influence of, obviously, you know, if you see the trailer for this, like, you're like, oh yeah, Final Destination. You know, I remember Some people love it. I didn't think it was great, but there was like a Final Destination ripoff called Soul Survivors. I think there was only one movie, but that kind of thing. And yeah, I think, to me, if this was made in the 90s, I feel like it probably would have had an edge to it that really would have like elevated it. I think me and Colton have just kind of really pounded home the overall disappointment and kind of like PG-13 horror that like keeps coming into the theaters these last couple years that, just are very like sanitized and very the same, all that kind of stuff. So, I do think this was fun in terms of bringing us back to that era. Because obviously, Exilia came with me to this, which, is a miracle in itself. Usually when I see these, Exilia's like, I'm not coming to the movies to go see this stupid movie. And, like, this was one that we both kind of thought, like, oh, this could be fun. Like, this
seems like an Exilia movie.
Yeah, we're like, this has, like, a Final Destination feel or, like, something real 90s, like, feel. So there's, like, this, nostalgia to it. And, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. So, we love movies that have these sort of gimmicks to them. I didn't love the acting, first of all. And the very, like, spoon-fed plot, it was like they had to keep telling you everything that was happening as it was happening instead of just showing it and letting the audience kind of figure it out. And the cheesy dialogue was really bad. I also made my husband come with me, and he suffered greatly. I was actually surprised that he stayed the entire time because he kept looking at me when, there was some cheesy dialogue, and I was just cracking up. And actually in the theater, like, we were the only people there in the beginning, and then like in the couple minutes when it started, like, more people came in. I'd say there's like 15 people in the whole theater. But yeah, apart from that, I thought it had good bones. Like, if this were made by maybe if it were made by different people, maybe it could have been good. Like, the costumes and the makeup, I thought looked good most of the time, but it could have been more fine-tuned throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I think the gore was really lacking. Like, all the deaths were kind of off screen, like all the actual details, and I didn't really like that. So I thought it had great potential. But if you just look at the things that, like the dialogue, the acting, the plot, the lack of gore, it just kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, and it was hard for me to look back on it and kind of kind of enjoy it. So I don't know. I wouldn't recommend going to see it in the theater, but when it does come out, you could like throw it on. If you have people over, maybe, if you want to like laugh at the goofiness of it or something. But yeah, it's not great.
Look at you getting right into the recommend already.
I am so sorry.
It's all right. You know what? You're just you're expediting your position on it. You just want to get to the spoiler section. That's really what's going on there.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, my overall thoughts are very similar to you. Like, I think there's good bones in this. Obviously something like this, if this was like 1996, like this would have like 5-6 sequels, and they, everybody would be finding these tarot cards. I agree, like, the script was pretty weak. I said many times to Exilia, I leaned over and I'm like, this literally, when people say like, oh, this Netflix film seems like it's written by ChatGPT, I'm like, this actually really, really does. Like, people are talking to each other like kind of unnaturally. Everyone like has this like CW like charisma, which can be a vibe, like if done correctly. I'm a Riverdale stan, but like most of the time is just very lacking and just not like standout performances. Now I know like a lot of these, a lot of this cast is younger and probably not as well known. I would take it. The only two really well known people in this are Avantika, who obviously is in the new Mean Girls film, and I don't know, I'm too old, but I feel like she's like a Disney girl or a Nickelodeon girl, or
I don't know if she's actually been in much else. Like,
I think she's like a
been in
social
some-
media person too.
Yeah, she's
also.
in some Indian films.
Yeah, and then you know, a big loser like me. Obviously, Jacob Batalon, I was familiar with because, you know, he's Tom Holland's best friend in the Spider-Man movies.
Oh yeah, who plays Paxton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic in this. He garnered laughs out of our theater. Like your theater, our theater was also pretty dead. It was a lot of who I think this was aimed at. There was a lot of kids that were like no older than 12, 13. I will say
mine was all adults.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would kind of think there would be quite a bit of adults just because, you know, like I said, it kind of has this Final Destination nostalgia that they've been using for the promos for it. So, no, we had young adults. And you know what? I must say, I was pretty impressed. Normally, my theater time spent with 12 and 13-year-olds is terrible. They're loud. They're like Snapchatting. They're videotaping. They're like doing anything but watching the movie. And this whole row of kids like sat and watched fully attentively to this entire film. Except then I got stuck with like these like 19, 20-year-old like raw skeets behind me that kept like putting their feet up on the chair beside my head and like laughing and weren't watching the movie at all. They were just talking the entire time, and it was just
that pisses me off so much.
Yeah, it was terrible, and I was off, guys, because you know I went with the popcorn. I didn't go with the glizzy. I was like, I'm gonna be different. It was giving me a popcorn vibe. I was like, oh, you know, like this cool little Final Destination horror movie. I'll get some popcorn, and it didn't hit the spot. I had a couple handfuls, and I was done as normal. And then, like, one of the skeets behind me had a glizzy, and I was just like, oh, I should have got the hot dog. Yeah.
My husband bought 2 of the glizzies.
Nice.
And it was $22 American for 2 glizzies and a drink.
Were they good,
and
though?
Apparently it was so bad that he didn't even eat the second one.
Oh, no.
And he kept burping, and all I could smell the entire movie. Every now and then I just got, a whiff of fucking beef.
That's romance.
But also, there was this lady, like, kind of behind me. She was eating the entire movie. I don't know what she was eating, but it was in this, like, crinkly ass bag. And every time, like, she was just constantly eating. So there's constantly this crinkly sound throughout the movie, even through the quiet parts. And I was just laughing at it at that point because I was like, what's going on here? Like,
yeah,
anyway.
That's unfortunate. Yeah. We're getting off on a food tangent here. But yeah, I mean, like I said, my other issues I had with this is I thought the film was overly too dark. I'm going to suspect that was probably maybe a budget thing or like, I just felt like we never really saw, like the monsters or anything. It was very dark. I thought a lot of the scenes, some of them you could see okay, but yeah, I felt it was very dark.
It's interesting that you say that because I saw people saying that on Letterboxd.
Oh, really?
Before I went to go see it, and then when I went to go see it, I was expecting it to be dark as hell and not be able to see anything, but it was fine for me. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe some of us
you're just a baby.
Yeah, or maybe some of us our screens weren't as good or something. You saw it in an optimum screen, but yeah, I mean, I thought a lot of the creatures, it didn't focus on them very much. We didn't get a lot of time with them to like be scared of them. I thought the cutaways, like I said, you could definitely tell this is for a younger audience because I was like, I've definitely seen like a PG-13 horror movie with like a little more violence than this. Like it really did cut away from anything at any point. I kind of feel like, and we'll get into the actual kills and stuff, but I feel like that kind of first kill is probably the most violent it was, and it really
it's
just
the best one.
Yeah, but it really just kind of like cut away whenever it did. Where I mean, maybe I need to go back and watch Final Destination stuff like that. But I was like, I feel like those, gave you a little bit
yeah.
more. So
They never shied away
Yeah.
in Final Destination.
it is what it is. I will say I didn't look any further into it, but overall, I thought the soundtrack was pretty good. Like, I thought there was a couple bops in this that, I was bopping to. I was like, all right, I would listen to this in the car. Not really like a horror score, but like there's a lot of like synth pop, dream pop type music in it that I would suspect people like this would, that are into tarot cards and stuff would be into. So, I thought that was a plus in it. And you know what? The last thing I'll say is, and I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but it's true. I just feel like it was like inoffensive. It was just like, like it was like, yeah, okay. There's nothing I was like, oh my God, like, this is an abomination to cinema. And I wasn't ever overly, like excited or scared or anything like that. I was just like, yeah, I'm at the movies.
Yeah. If they just went a little more explicit with this, it didn't have to be like too much in your face. It could have still been like PG-13. But if they just went there with, the dialogue, stop making it so cheesy, and a little more on the deaths, I think it would have been way better. I want a remake. I want them to come back, revisit this idea. I want someone else to take this and make it into a banger.
The Rob Zombie remake.
I don't know if I want Rob Zombie
No,
to
it would
remake
be,
this,
he would be.
But
yeah, I know what you're saying though. Someone that maybe would be like, hey, we want to make this like, even like a rated R horror movie for teenagers.
I want a woman to make it. This is a woman movie.
A woman kind of made it. She half directed and half wrote it.
Okay.
So, no, I mean, in fairness, I don't know how credible they are, because their only other credit is Moonfall. I don't know if you saw that banger of a movie.
Nope.
But yeah, let me tell you, that's a good thing. And all that's left for me, I guess, is just recommended in this section. And yeah, I'm the same as you. Like, I'd probably hold off. I mean, if tarot cards are really your thing and you're like, I gotta go see this. This is like one of those really hard ones, because me personally, I probably would have preferred to save the money and wait for this to come on a streamer.
Yeah.
But, like if you gotta go to the movies, you gotta see a horror movie and you've seen everything, like, I think you might get like at least a couple laughs at like some cheesy stuff out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's just, I'll keep repeating the word inoffensive, because I just think you would go in and you'd be like, yeah, all right, like as long as you enjoyed your company, whoever you brought or whatever, I think you could have a good time with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say probably not really overly recommend it. So yeah, it seems like two not really recommends for tarot. So with that, I think it's time to cut over to our spoiler section. So this is the part of the podcast, if you haven't seen tarot and you want to, shut the episode off now. Go see it, and then you can come back and revisit this part, or keep on listening if you simply don't care. So, Jill, I actually had a question to start off this section of the spoiler section. I want to get right into kind of our creatures, our monsters of it.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we have our, like, the setup scene where they're going to use this cursed tarot deck, and read everyone's tarot. Is that what it's called? Like, are you reading their future, or I don't know what you're reading, but you're reading their cards.
I think they did a really, simplification, like a gross simplification of tarot cards, and also, mixing astrology, like horoscopes, with tarot. Because normally you just look at the cards.
Yeah, which, keep an earmark on that, because that is something that I do want to bring up about the mixture of horoscope and tarot. But yeah, I was curious. So the cards were introduced with, which all have these hand-painted creature designs, which I think on the cards actually look really good.
I agree.
But we have the High Priestess, the Hermit, the Hangman, the Magician, the Fool, and Death, and the Devil card. And so I was just curious, did you have a favorite of these creatures as they kind of come to life. Obviously, I like to think our listeners are of pretty high intelligence, so I probably don't have to tell you to get read these cards. Everyone kind of gets a different creature, and then these creatures are the ones that inevitably kill them with, not even like complicated, it's like the magician does a magic trick, or like,
Yeah.
They kind of have a very basic premise to what they can do. But yeah, like, did you have a favorite creature design or a favorite creature in general? Or least favorite, or...
Yeah, my favorite was the very first one, the High Priestess.
The High Priestess?
Yeah, and that was my favorite, like, death, too, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, I thought it looked really good. I love, like, her gloves. She was wearing these, like, long-fingered, like, pointy gloves, and they're, like, shiny, and, like, she had these really long fingers. It looked really good because she was, like, holding the ladder with it. And then, like, her face with, like, the mask and everything. I don't know, I just love the concept also of a high priestess.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really original in a horror movie. So yeah, that was my favorite. I thought she looked great. What about you?
I mean, I really liked The Fool. I thought The Fool was like a cool concept. As silly as I think they still made it, I enjoyed like the off-putting, awkward way it moved. He turned, like kind of contorted his body.
Yeah, across the street.
Yeah, and
I like that.
And then we also have, stuff like the scene in the elevator with like the door opening and closing, and he's kind of like in different places doing different things. And then also when we get the close-up of him, of like his mask changing expressions,
Yeah.
I just thought that was pretty cool. And I will say, like, I was pretty underwhelmed. It might have been different for you because you said it wasn't as dark, but I thought the Hanged Man was kind of like, I knew it was almost like a little creature thing, but like
that was Gollum.
Yeah, and I kind of assumed,
Lord of the
but
Rings.
we couldn't see anything. I was like, I kind of see this white
Really?
streak, even when it's coming down the rope or whatever. I was like, I can't, like, it was so dark, I couldn't overly see it. So that's why I
could
kind
see
of
everything.
Oh, really? That's why I kind of
Yeah.
assumed. I was like, oh, there must be, some shoddy CG or something going on here.
Nah, like all the creatures looked really good to me, and I saw all the detail. Actually, my complaint was that we saw too much of the creatures sometimes. So maybe the different screens, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
jeez.
yeah, the Hanged Man, that was super like Smeagol. Like that's exactly what it looked like, if you're wondering. So
Yeah, now I'm kind of disappointed. That's okay. Maybe when it comes out, I'll rewatch it or something. Maybe on my like personal TV, it'll be a little brighter or something. Now, I know you said, let's talk about it. You said you really enjoyed like that first kill.
yeah, so
Who was that? Elise. That was the character. The redhead.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm so mad about it because that kill was so good. There was so much suspense being built. I did the thing where I like started covering my eyes when she was like looking up into the attic because I was like, oh my god, like I can't deal with this. Yeah, so it excelled at building tension, the teasing with the audience, and playing like with the angles and the darkness. I thought it was kind of brutal, her falling down from the attic or whatever, and then starting to like crawl towards her phone, and then the High Priestess is like repeatedly like impaling her with the ladder. I was kind of expecting more. I was like, okay, her head's gonna pop off and roll away or something, or we're gonna see the ladder like go through and it's gonna be like really detailed, but none of that happened. So I was a little upset by the cop-out of just, like, seeing the blood splash on her phone screen or whatever, but I thought that had really good potential, and it really set the movie up with high standards for me for the rest of the kills, and then I was disappointed, so...
Yeah, because that obviously, like you said, that was, like, the most brutal kill, really, of this, and kind of the most, like, drawn-out kill.
Yeah.
Where that suspense is kind of built, and they just never are able to live up with that. And I mean, even, I was talking about how much I love The Fool, but, like, The Fool, we didn't even get a death, because that, that character actually ends up living.
That made me so mad. That was such a cop-out. It wasn't even funny. Like, you know how in Get Out, at the end, his friend shows up in the, like, the cop car or the, like, TSA car or whatever? That's funny, like, when someone shows up like that. This isn't funny because I thought he was dead, and I should have known better because we didn't, like, see him die. But what a cop-out. And I didn't understand why he didn't die. Like, I get that he must have, like, opened up the elevator door at the end and, like, faced his fear. But it didn't really make sense because the guy in the subway, like, didn't, like, run away from the light or anything. Like, the light came towards him and he died. So, like, what choice did this guy have, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe I'm looking too much into it, but, like, the logic behind it didn't really make sense to me, and I was just like, God damn it, just, like, he should have just died. Why do we have 3 people left over at the end? Just die.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those things where, like, 2 at max, if you're gonna do, like, the teen film thing, and you're gonna have, like, kind of the couple survive. But yeah, I mean, just kill them off. I will say I did also kind of enjoy the magician kill.
Yeah.
I thought that was, Paige died from the magician. It was, you know, obviously giving me big Leprechaun 3 vibes where he saws the girl in half.
Yes.
But you know what I thought most about was dead silence. Because we get, like, the old-timey, like, obviously ghost dead audience of, like, old people dressed real regally, and there's, like, a stage, just kind of like the ventriloquism stuff. And I thought the magician looked, like, pretty creepy, like, you know, he was smiling.
Actually, yeah.
I thought it was good. Now, like you said, obviously, I thought, you know, the way it's cut, the way it's edited, you know, they made it as tame as possible. We, you know, we get that. We know, basically. To me, I guess as a seasoned horror person, I'm like, oh, magician on stage. I was like, we're definitely somehow getting in a box.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the Saw thing. So I was like, fantastic. Why you would hide in that box, I don't know. If I'm trying to run away, I'm not, like, hiding in a box right there when that's where you are. But, and also I kind of thought, too, I was like, you know, the magician saws into her, but at the camera angle, it kind of seems like he's sawing, like, into her leg. And I was curious because she pretty much died immediately. And I was like, yeah, I wonder if your leg got cut off if you really die that quick. I guess if it hits an artery or something.
Yeah. Well, okay, I have a couple things to say. One, I really loved Avantika's performance. I thought she was like my favorite out of everyone. I would love to see her in more horror, actually. I think she would make a fantastic scream queen. And I love that she was wearing a shirt that was, like, navy and it had, like, sparkly stars on it. And it looked just like the interior of the box that she got into. So I thought that was a cute little nod to that. Again, I liked everything about this death, but they could have done something. They could have, like, had blood coming out of the box, like something to show us that, you know, a little bit of gore. But my main problem with this death is it seems to be happening in, like, some kind of dream sequence.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand how it happened because, and then also when everyone else leaves at the end, they just leave her body there. They're like, oh, where's Paige? And they're like, I don't know, she's dead. So, you know, they just leave. Like, no one's gonna call.
Yeah, and I think there's that kind of logic flaw in some of them. Like, you know, I was thinking about the deaths, like, with the Hermit, because the Hermit kills Lucas, and, you know, he's kind of, like, going through train cars and that kind of thing, and it seems like he's in, like, an abandoned area. Like, there's, like, graffiti, but it's all, like, parked train cars. The power's off. The lighting's obviously dark because, you know, like, we don't even really see the hermit. It's just, like, a guy with a lantern. I don't really know how that makes him a hermit. Just having, like, a hat and a lantern, but all right. And, yeah, you know, in that scene, like, he's in all these unmoving train cars, and then he basically gets scared onto a random track that there is a moving train car, but it's like, it seemed like he was in a shut down area.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, can some of these be? I mean, obviously the magician can, but, like, maybe that's their whole thing. They can transport you to this place, very Nightmare on Elm Street. And if that was the case, that's fine, but that was never explained to us.
Exactly. And the other thing about all the deaths except for the hangman death. I thought that was it could have been done better. Like, you know, he's just like crawling above the bridge with a noose.
Yeah.
And like, it's not very exciting, really.
It seems like it's out of a different kind of movie. Like, that seems like it's out of like a creatures taking over your city movie. Like, they're running away from a creature running on a bridge. Not really like a specter or like these ghostly figures. Yeah.
That could have been executed a little bit better, but I think everything else, for the most part, like, they are playing around with really cool settings for horror. The monsters looked good. I like the way that they were dying. This could have really banged if they had just went there with it. It makes me so mad.
Yeah, 100%. I was curious your thoughts on like, I guess I'd call it like the overarching story of this. So obviously we have these kids and they use the tarot deck and all that stuff. But, you know, we do have this story of the astrologer. And, you know, like the story of the astrologer who, you know, like serves this Hungarian baron and like predicts his future and basically, you know, predicts that his wife is gonna have a child, but they're gonna die in childbirth. And then he basically, you know, does the 17th century baron thing and is like, to death with this woman, like, I don't like this reading. And like, I was just curious how you felt about all that stuff, because I thought it was interesting because even that stuff seemed like it was all like, even though it wasn't really much brutaler, like I was like, even this part seems a little more brutal than like the kills we're getting in present time.
Yeah.
And like, I did like, you know, this kind of like quick curse story of a witch or an astrologer that's, I mean, basically a witch. Which, yeah. Which, you know, when we get the astrologer in present time, I wasn't, like, thrilled with her look. I felt it was kind of, you know, I was like, am I in Insidious or... Like, I felt like it was all right, but it was very, like, basic. And, yeah, I thought this whole thing was all right. I did like, you know, a very similar trope where they got to go to, like, an old woman to figure out what's, you know, going on, because she's the only survivor, which is very Final Destination-ish. I can't remember what was her name, like, Alma...
something.
Alma Astron.
Astrum. Wasn't it? Or Astron?
Yeah, Alma Astron, who is played by Olin Fourie. I'm sure that's not how you say her last name, but of, you know, we see her pop up in some awesome stuff. She's from The Northman. She's from Mandy. She's from the Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. So it's kind of cool to see like a horror. I thought she was good. I thought she was really good.
She was convincing.
Yeah.
I really liked her part. I thought she added a great, like, creep element to it. But yeah, going back to the astrologer, I liked that the villain was called the astrologer and not, like, just wasn't, like, you know, some witch. I thought that was refreshing.
I want a movie where that's the name, just some witch.
But yeah, they put their whole bussy into like all the other creatures, and then they were like, okay, she's just a woman who was scorned. Here's a mask, or, you know, put a veil over, whatever it was they did.
Give
I don't
you
even remember.
Dead looking skin, some white skin.
Yeah, so I mean, it's cool that she's just a scorned woman. But, you know, they could have done something to make her a little more scary. But all the manifestations of the cards are her, essentially, which is cool. But the other thing that I also didn't really like about this is the fact that, you know, she got fucked over, and that's why, you know, these cards are cursed, and that's why she's cursed, and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't really get why she was, like, taking it out on these people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just didn't, like, you know, make sense to me. Like, why
well,
is she mad at you guys?
And this is where I guess it's a good chance to weave in kind of the ending of this, where I was just a little disappointed, because whether or not I like this or not, I mean, it's like your number one rule in horror. You gotta keep this open for a sequel. Like,
right.
You're doing the blueprint of Final Destination. Like, This should be a paint by numbers situation. And I didn't like that they kind of resolved it at the end, and it was like a ha-ha, which I get they probably thought was kind of subversive, like, oh, you would expect this to be a franchise, but you know what? Everything gets settled at the end and all this stuff. Now, is there probably a terrible way for them, to be like, oh no, psych, the astrologer isn't dead? I mean, of course, this is what great franchises are based off of. How do we expand this? But yeah, I this is one situation where I was kind of expecting a gotcha ending of like, this is gonna keep going, because yeah, to me, I think, like I said, you could probably make money off this somewhere. I don't know. Maybe.
You could.
Maybe they just didn't have faith in it.
I think what they should do is just remake it, and then, once it's made by the right people, then they go for the sequel.
So I was going to say, like, before we get into rating it, why don't we clear some room for you? Because I did know, and like I said, I'm very curious because I know nothing about it, but you were going to talk about the tarot versus the horoscope stuff, which I guess before you say anything, I'm gonna make the assumption probably was the weird thing. Like, I'm thinking about the name. This was supposed to be called horoscope.
Yeah.
This is from the 90s. Horoscopes were probably a little bigger then. And then obviously, just because of how big tarot is with TikTok and all that kind of stuff, I can see why they wanted to convert it. But yeah, like what did you notice? Bad, good?
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole thing, and like, I think tarot and all that stuff, like astrology and in general, is pretty subjective. Like, you can take the bits that you like and put it into your practice and kind of weed out things you don't like. So I don't really want to shit on it too much, but I was questioning the legitimacy of tarot and astrology in this movie, like the way that they put them together.
Yeah.
And I did like how they said, it's subjective essentially in the beginning, which is true. But yeah, I just felt like the way that they portrayed it here kind of cheapened it for me. I don't know if other people would feel that way. Like I said, I dabble with tarot, and the way I do it is probably really different than the movie, because I don't combine horoscopes with tarot, or I don't try to predict the future. And I don't think that's what most people use tarot for. It's not really so much as like, this is going to tell me my future. So when I was watching it, and the main girl is like, I forget her name, but
sorry, it's Haley. Haley's the character.
Haley. She's like, yeah, I kept doing this and I kept getting the same cards. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like, I understand why it happened. Also didn't like the discussion of like fate.
Yeah.
And, we can't change fate. And then at the end, she's like, fuck fate and whatever. That was cheesy. But, yeah, when I use cards personally, it's to like kind of engage and channel like my own intuition, or like to navigate my own feelings. It's almost like a form of therapy. Like,
yeah, it's
just like what you're feeling at your core. It just surfaces, and you're able to kind of like identify what you're feeling that's buried deep down, and kind of reflect on it, and then kind of be like, how should I go about this? Yeah, I think mainstream society has like a very different view of tarot. It's just like, oh, it's some weird magic, and people really believe that you can like predict your future, or like whatever like that, but it's subjective, but that's just kind of how I viewed it. But yeah, like I said, I think it kind of cheapened it for me a little bit. I would have wished, a little less heavy on the fate thing, less heavy on the horoscopes. I did kind of like that they brought up everybody's like star sign, and like went after like their attributes. So like Aquarius is like really stubborn. I know that is because I am also really stubborn. So I thought that was interesting. I'm trying to remember the other ones. They didn't have a Gemini, did they?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember.
Would have been cool to have like everyone represented, because then everyone watching it can kind of connect.
Yeah, that's definitely my problem with this is not enough Gemini.
That's a very Gemini way of looking at it, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
compliment or not.
You guys are like moody, like black and white.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely
Serial
me.
killer.
Yeah, serial killer, moody.
Personality disorders.
Yeah,
Gemini.
Exili would agree with you, I'm sure. Yeah, so are you comfortable going in the rating this?
Yeah, let's do it.
So if you're new to our program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Jill, what would you give tarot?
So, first of all, I'm just going to start off by saying I think this movie is the humbling of Gen Z. We millennials had our share of cringe and we got made fun of, but we came through with our, early 2000s horror because it still slaps.
Yeah,
I don't know
agree.
if we can say this about tarot in the future. So, even when ours was bad, it was still good. This isn't. So, it's a nay for me. I love the idea, not the execution. I would love to see a better version of this in the future. Needed more gore. There are no on-scene deaths. Less dialogue. Clean up the plot. Clean up, the logistics of how everything is happening. And why is Paxton still alive? And maybe not show the creatures for too long was my other note, but apparently you couldn't even see them. So
yeah, and here I was like, maybe show the creatures more. So
yeah, so that's really interesting that's a thing. But also, I really love Avantika. She's only 19, by the way, which is crazy.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I feel like a lot of these guys are ripe for that kind of like scream queen age, and it seems a lot of them, like we didn't even bring up like Aidan Bradley, who plays like the love interest Grant, like like his only other movie is like the remake to Wrong Turn. Like a lot of these guys have other horror movies as their kind of basis for what they've been in, so I'm always for that
Potential. But what about you? How do you rate tarot?
Yeah, this is a hard one. Because I feel like if I come in with an okay, that Colton will murder me for giving this okay. I'll give it a nay. I'll give it like cusping that like low okay, but it's a nay for me. I think overall it just doesn't work. It's a little too tame for my liking. I think it's going to be a little too tame for most people's liking. I made the joke to Exilia when it was done, because like I said, there were so many younger kids there compared to, like 36-year-old me. And I just said, I was like, think about it, Exilia. Some kid is coming out of this theater and this is it. This is their Exorcist. This is their Evil Dead. This is like their movie iconography just starts with tarot. They like that. They're like, this is peak cinema. It doesn't get better than tarot. Which makes me sad to think about. But yeah, no, I just think there were so many flaws in this. You could tell. I don't know. Am I overly interested in seeing what these guys do next? Like, probably not. I mean, I probably will for the show, but I'm not, I did see their writing on Moonfall, which also seemed like it was ChatGPT. So I'm not fully confident that these guys can bring a game to anything. And yeah, I just thought, it's very possible to do successful PG horror, gateway horror. And this just isn't it. I think this falters in too many spots. I think people that even aren't in the horror will be able to pick this apart and not really find it that scary. But like I said, you know what? At least there was a couple bops in this, so a couple bangers to get through. So yeah, 2 nays from us. And if you are not following us on any social media, do so at It Slays Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Tumblr, Slasher, Bluesky, Threads. Basically, if there's a social media, we are on it. So go follow us. And Jill, would you tell the lovely people on how they can become a horror hound?
Yeah, so if you don't know about this, I'm going to tell you a little secret. We have a Patreon. So if you're interested in becoming a horror hound, you can mosey on over to our Patreon and get access to the show 48 hours early, access to Stream Screams, which is a show that me and Rowan do, and become a horror hound, like Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Sacrotype, Mark, Joy, Carvey, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and Genesis. So go on over and choose the tier that works best for you. Rowan, any bangers from tarot making it to the spooky playlist?
There's definitely some bangers. I'll have to go through it. I'm always scared with these ones because I'm like, they're like synth pop bangers, but they're not really like horror music. But I do have a lot of music on the playlist that isn't necessarily horror music. Just reminds you of a movie. So we'll see, maybe. But in general, you can go to Spotify to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media I mentioned just a little bit before. Go to the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we love, or horror movies we review. So, yeah, go follow the playlist. We update it pretty regularly and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And all that is left is basically to announce what's next. And I believe what is next is I Saw the TV Glow. Maybe Colton's back for that one. I'm not 100% sure. I will definitely be back. If Colton's not back, I will make sure to bring a friend or some friends on it. We'll try to get someone. It won't just be me, monologuing about it. It could be. I don't know if that's what the people want. Maybe I just kick everyone off the podcast. It's just me talking for 2 hours.
I'm gonna try to go see it. I just have to go far away.
So as always, thanks for all the support. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Jill.
And if you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.